June 1666. The North Sea is a canvas of gray, tense, and waiting. Two of the world's most powerful navies, the English and the Dutch, are about to clash in what will become the longest and most grueling naval battle in the Age of Sail. This wasn't just a fight for control of the seas. It was a descent into a 4-day hell, an ordeal of fire, iron, and exhaustion from which there was no escape. At dawn on the first day, the fleets appear on the horizon. Over 100 ships on each side, massive wooden fortresses bristling with cannon, meticulously arranged themselves into rigid lines of battle. This formation was the pinnacle of naval doctrine, designed to concentrate firepower, but it was also a trap. Once engaged, disengaging was nearly impossible without exposing your fleet to total destruction. The wind, the tide, and the sheer number of vessels meant that once the dance began, no one could leave the floor. The first shots are thunderous. A ripple of fire and smoke erupts down the line as the English open up. The Dutch fleet, commanded by the legendary Mitchell de Ruyter, answers in kind. On deck, the world shrinks to a bubble of chaos. Massive cannons, weighing thousands of pounds, recoil violently, threatening to crush anyone in their path. Sweating, soot-covered crews work in a frantic rhythm, swab the barrel, load the powder, ram the shot, run out the gun, and fire. The air fills with the deafening roar of cannon, the splintering crack of wood as cannonballs tear through hulls, and the screams of the wounded. For the sailors, strategy is an abstract concept spoken by officers on the quarterdeck. Their reality is survival, moment to moment. As the sun sets on the first day, there is no relief. The battle rages on into the night, the darkness punctuated by the terrifying glow of burning ships. The fires illuminate a scene from a nightmare: shattered masts, blood-soaked decks, and the exhausted faces of men who haven't slept. A damaged ship was a death sentence if it fell out of the line, so crews worked desperately to make repairs even as enemy fire rained down. They slept where they fell, next to their cannons, grabbing precious minutes of rest before the next broadside. There was no escaping the fight. To retreat was to surrender the sea, a political and economic disaster that neither side's commanders, George Monk for the English and de Ruyter for the Dutch, were willing to accept. By day 2, the relentless combat continues. The sheer scale of the fleets meant no single, decisive blow could be struck. It was a battle of attrition. Communication was a nightmare. Orders, shouted through speaking trumpets or relayed by signal flags, were often lost in the smoke and confusion. Ships became isolated, fighting their own private wars within the larger conflict. The rigid lines of battle began to fray, devolving into a chaotic melee of individual ship-to-ship duels. The initial shock and adrenaline have worn off, replaced by a grim, bone-deep weariness. Day 3 arrives, and exhaustion is now the true commander of both fleets. Ammunition is running critically low. Powder magazines are being scraped for the last few barrels. Crews are so fatigued they can barely stand, let alone serve the heavy guns. Men collapse at their stations, their bodies simply giving out. Strategy is dead. The only thing that matters now is endurance. Who can last longer? Who can absorb more punishment? Tight, disorienting shots would show you the reality. The desperate look in a captain's eye, the frantic efforts to plug a hole below the waterline as water pours in, the shaking hands of a sailor trying to load a cannon for the 100th time. It was no longer about winning, it was about surviving the next minute. On the 4th and final day, the fleets are ghosts of their former selves. Many ships are dismasted, drifting helplessly. Others are little more than floating wrecks, their hulls riddled with holes, their decks slick with blood. The battle has fragmented into sporadic, desperate clashes. A ship might drift past a burning hulk, its crew staring blankly at the dead floating in the water. The smoke is so thick it blocks out the sun, casting a permanent, hellish twilight over the scene. Finally, mercifully, the fleets begin to separate, not in a decisive retreat, but as two mortally wounded giants staggering away from each other. There was no clear victor. Both sides claimed a victory of sorts, but both had suffered horrific losses in ships and men. The English lost 10 ships and had over 5,000 men killed or captured. The Dutch lost for ships, but also thousands of sailors. The real outcome was a shared sense of shock and horror at the sheer brutality of the ordeal. As dawn breaks after the 4th day, the sea is calm. The only evidence of the Titanic's struggle is the debris field stretching for miles, shattered timbers, broken masts, and the silent bodies of the fallen drifting on the tide. For the exhausted survivors staring out at the wreckage, there is no glory, only the hollow relief of having lived through it. The 4 days' battle wasn't won. It was endured. It stands as a terrifying monument to the age of sail, a reminder that on the merciless ocean, the sea itself does not care who wins.